The Velthari warship hung in the darkness of space like a wounded animal. Its hull was torn open in 3 places, and the once-proud vessel drifted without power through the asteroid field near the human colony of New Hope. Inside the broken ship, Commander Thex pressed his clawed hand against the wound on his side and tried to think clearly. The battle had lasted only 12 minutes, but it had cost him everything. His people, the Velthari, had been at war with humanity for 3 years now. The conflict had started over a misunderstanding about mining rights in the Kelver system, but it had grown into something much larger. The Velthari Council had declared humans to be dangerous and unpredictable. They had said that these strange, soft-skinned beings with their 2 eyes and 5-fingered hands were a threat to all civilized species in the galaxy. Thex had believed every word. He had trained his whole life to fight, and when the war came, he was ready. He had destroyed human ships. He had won battles. He had earned his rank through blood and fire. But now, floating in the wreckage of his command, he wondered if any of it had been worth the cost. "Commander," a weak voice called from somewhere in the darkness. "Commander, are you there?" Thex pushed himself up and moved toward the sound. He found young Kira, one of his junior officers, pinned under a fallen beam. Her scales were pale, almost white, which meant she was losing too much blood. Among the Velthari, the scales changed color with health and emotion. Bright blue meant strength and confidence. White meant death was close. "I am here," Thex said. He knelt beside her and tried to lift the beam, but his own injuries made him weak. "Hold on, Kira. Help will come." "Will it?" she asked. Her large eyes, which could see in total darkness, looked up at him without hope. The distress signal, did it even send? Thex did not answer because he did not know. The ship's communication system had been one of the first things to fail. For all he knew, they were completely alone out here, slowly dying in the cold void between stars. Around them, the remaining crew of 32 Velthari waited in the darkness. Some were injured badly. Others were untouched but trapped in sections of the ship that had no power and no heat. The temperature was already dropping. In a few hours, it would be cold enough to kill them all. Thex made his way to the observation window, which had somehow survived the battle. He looked out at the stars and saw the distant glow of New Hope, the human colony they had been sent to attack. The mission had been simple: destroy the colony's defense satellites and prepare the way for the main fleet. Instead, human ships had appeared from behind the planet's moon and caught them in a deadly crossfire. The humans had not fought like the Velthari expected. They had not charged in with blind fury. They had been patient and smart. They had worked together like parts of a single machine. And when Thex's ship was crippled, when any other enemy would have finished them off, the humans had simply stopped. They had stopped shooting and left. Thex did not understand this. In Velthari culture, you did not leave an enemy alive. You finished the fight. You made sure they could never threaten you again. But the humans had let him live, and now he floated in the dark, waiting for death to come slowly instead of quickly. "Commander," a voice shouted from across the ship. "Commander, you need to see this." Thex moved as fast as his injured body would allow. He found Officer Dren standing at a cracked viewport, pointing at something outside. At first, Thex saw nothing. Then slowly, a shape appeared against the stars. It was a ship, small and boxy, with no weapons visible on its hull. It was painted white with a red symbol on the side that Thex did not recognize. "What is that?" Dren asked. His voice was filled with fear. "Is it human?" Thex watched the strange ship approach. It moved slowly, carefully, as if it did not want to frighten them. Lights blinked on its hull in a pattern that seemed almost friendly. Then, a voice came through the emergency channel, speaking in heavily accented Velthari. "Damaged vessel, this is the human medical ship Mercy's Hand. We are here to help. Do you need assistance?" Dren hissed in surprise. "It is a trick. They want to board us and take prisoners." Thex held up his hand for silence. He thought about what he knew of humans. They were supposed to be violent and cruel. The council had shown him footage of human wars, of the terrible things they did to each other. But this ship had no weapons. It was offering help, not demanding surrender. "What do you want?" Thex asked through the emergency channel. "We want to help you're injured," the human voice replied. "Our sensors show your life support is failing. You have maybe 4 hours before your ship becomes too cold to survive. Please, let us help." "Why would you help us?" Thex demanded. "We are your enemies. We came here to destroy your colony." There was a pause before the human answered. "You came here to fight. The fight is over. Now you are just people who are hurt and cold. That changes things." Thex did not know what to say. This made no sense to him. In war, you destroyed your enemies. You did not heal them. But as he looked around at his dying crew, he knew he had no choice. Pride meant nothing if everyone was dead. "Very well," he said. "You may approach." The white ship moved closer, and a connection tube extended from its side. Thex gathered his officers and told them to prepare for boarding. He expected soldiers with weapons. He expected to be treated as prisoners. Instead, when the airlock opened, he found himself facing a small human female with kind eyes and no weapon at all. "Hello," she said in careful Velthari. "My name is Dr. Sarah Chen. We are here to help." Behind her were more humans carrying medical equipment. They wore simple white clothes with the same red symbol Thex had seen on the ship. None of them were armed. They looked at the injured Velthari not with hatred or fear, but with something that looked almost like concern. "This way," Thex said slowly. "We have many wounded." Dr. Chen nodded and signaled to her team. They moved through the damaged ship with purpose, treating every injured Velthari they found. They did not ask questions about rank or importance. They helped everyone equally, from the highest officer to the lowest worker. Thex followed them and watched in amazement. He saw a human male set a Velthari's broken arm with gentle hands. He saw a human female hold the hand of a dying soldier and speak soft words of comfort, even though they were supposed to be enemies. He saw things that the council had told him were impossible. Humans, he had been taught, were monsters, but these humans were not acting like monsters at all. The cold grip of the war was beginning to loosen, though Thex did not know it yet. Something was changing in his heart, something that would eventually change everything. The rescue took 6 hours. Dr. Chen and her team worked without rest, moving through the Velthari ship with quiet efficiency. They stabilized the wounded, restored some power to the life support systems, and brought food and water from their own supplies. By the time they finished, every surviving Velthari had been treated. Thex sat in what remained of his command center and watched the humans work. He still did not understand why they were doing this. In his experience, kindness was a weakness that enemies would exploit. But these humans seemed to expect nothing in return. They simply helped because help was needed. "Your ship cannot be repaired out here," Dr. Chen said, approaching him with a small device in her hand. "We can tow you to New Hope Station, where our engineers can fix the worst damage, or we can call for a Velthari ship to come get you. The choice is yours." "You would let us go?" Thex asked, just like that. "You are not our prisoners," Dr. Chen said. "You are our patients. When you are well, you are free to leave." Thex stared at her for a long moment. "I do not understand you humans. We came here to kill your people. We would have destroyed your colony without mercy. And yet you heal our wounds and offer us freedom. Why?" Dr. Chen sat down across from him. She was small, this human, with dark hair and skin the color of warm earth. She looked tired, but her eyes were bright with something that might have been compassion. "Can I tell you a story?" she asked. Thex nodded slowly. "A long time ago, on our home planet, humans were at war with each other constantly. We fought over land, over resources, over ideas. Millions died in these wars. Whole civilizations were destroyed. It seemed like we would never stop killing each other." "This is what the council told us," Thex said. "They said humans are violent by nature. We can be, Dr. Chen admitted. But we can also be something else. You see, after centuries of war, some humans started to ask different questions. Instead of asking how to win wars, they asked how to end them. Instead of counting their enemies, they started counting the suffering on both sides. She leaned forward slightly. We learned, Commander, that the only way to truly defeat an enemy is to make them a friend. Killing creates more enemies. Kindness creates allies. It took us a very long time to learn this lesson, but we learned it. So you help us because you want us to be your allies? Thex asked. No, Dr. Chen said. We help you because you needed help. If you become our allies someday, that would be wonderful. If not, we will still have done the right thing. That is enough for us. Thex was quiet for a long time. He thought about everything he had been taught about humans. He thought about the battles he had fought, the ships he had destroyed, the lives he had ended. He had always believed he was protecting his people from a dangerous enemy. But now he was beginning to wonder if the real danger was the war itself. What happens now? He finally asked. Now you rest, Dr. Chen said. Tomorrow we will talk about your options, but tonight you are safe. That is all that matters. She stood up and walked away, leaving Thex alone with his thoughts. Around him, his crew was being cared for by the very people they had come to kill. Young Kira was breathing steadily now, her scales slowly returning to a healthier shade of blue. Officer Dren was sleeping peacefully after having his wounds treated. Thex looked out the window at the human colony in the distance. Its lights twinkled like stars against the darkness of space. Those lights represented thousands of human lives that he would have extinguished without hesitation just a few hours ago. Now, those same humans were saving his people. The war suddenly seemed very far away, and Thex wondered if it had ever made sense at all. 3 days passed on New Hope Station. The Velthari crew was given quarters in the medical section where they could rest and recover. They were not locked in or guarded. They were free to move about, though most of them stayed close together, uncertain of how to act in this strange situation. Thex spent his time observing the humans. He watched them work, eat, play, and argue. He saw parents with children, workers with tools, soldiers who walked without weapons in the corridors. The humans seemed endlessly diverse, with different colors of skin and hair and eyes, different sizes and shapes. Yet they all seemed to work together somehow, despite their differences. One morning, a human child wandered into the medical section. She was young, perhaps 5 or 6 years old by human counting, with bright red hair and a face full of spots that Thex later learned were called freckles. She looked at the Velthari without any fear. "Hello," she said. "Are you the aliens?" Thex did not know how to respond. He had never spoken to a human child before. "Yes," he finally said. "I am Velthari." "My name is Emma," the child said. "Are you going to be friends with us now?" "I do not know," Thex admitted. Emma tilted her head, considering this. "You should be friends. Friends are better than enemies. My mom says so." Before Thex could reply, a human woman appeared and scooped Emma into her arms. "I am so sorry," she said to Thex. "She wanders off sometimes. She did not mean to bother you." "She did not bother me," Thex said. He was surprised to find that he meant it. She asked a good question. The woman smiled at him, and Thex saw no hatred in her eyes, only the simple warmth of one parent to another. She carried Emma away, but the child waved at him over her mother's shoulder. Thex waved back awkwardly and felt something shift inside him. Later that day, Dr. Chen came to see him. "Your ship repairs are almost complete," she said. "Our engineers worked quickly. You should be able to leave tomorrow if you wish." "Leave," Thex repeated, "and go where?" "Back to your people, I assume, back to the war." Thex was quiet for a moment. "Doctor, may I ask you something?" "Of course." "If I return to my people, they will want me to fight again. They will send me back here with more ships and more soldiers. Does that not worry you?" Dr. Chen nodded slowly. "It does, But we cannot keep you here against your will. That would make us no better than the enemies you expect us to be." "You are very strange creatures," Thex said. "So we have been told," Dr. Chen smiled. "But consider this, Commander. You have seen how we live. You have seen how we treat those we could easily call enemies. When you return to your people, you can tell them what you have seen. You can give them a different picture of humanity than the one they have been shown." "They will not believe me," Thex said. "The Council has already decided what humans are. One voice will not change their minds." "Perhaps not," Dr. Chen agreed. "But every great change starts with one voice, then two, then many. You cannot control what others believe, Commander. You can only control what you do." Thex thought about this for a long time after Dr. Chen left. He thought about the child Emma and her simple question. He thought about the human engineer who had fixed his ship's engines and asked him nothing in return. He thought about the soldiers who had defeated him in battle and then sent doctors instead of killers. That night, he made a decision. The next morning, Thex gathered his crew in the main hall of the medical section. They looked healthier now, their scales bright with color. They had been fed well, treated kindly, and allowed to rest. None of them had been harmed or threatened during their entire stay. "We have a choice to make," Thex told them. "Our ship is repaired. We can return to our people and continue the war, or—" He paused, looking at each of them in turn. "Or we can try something different." Officer Dren stepped forward. "What do you mean, Commander?" "I mean that everything we were told about humans is wrong. They are not monsters. They are not mindless killers. They are people, different from us, yes, but people nonetheless." "The Council will not accept this," Dren said. "They will call us traitors." "Perhaps," Thex agreed. "But I cannot go back to killing these people, knowing what I know now. I cannot destroy a colony that has children like Emma and healers like Dr. Chen. I will not do it." The room was silent. The Velthari looked at each other, uncertain. Then young Kira stepped forward. Her scales were bright blue now, healthy and strong. "I will follow you, Commander," she said. "I was dying and they saved me. They did not have to, they chose to, that matters." One by one, the other Velthari stepped forward. Not all of them, but most. 23 of the 32 crew members chose to stand with Thex. The others remained where they were, their faces uncertain. "Those of you who wish to return to the fleet, I will not stop you," Thex said. "Tell the Council what happened here. Tell them what you have seen. Maybe they will listen. Maybe they will not, but tell them the truth." He turned to face the humans who had gathered to watch. Dr. Chen stood among them, her expression calm but curious. "Doctor," Thex said, "my crew and I wish to stay. We wish to learn more about your people. And if you will have us, we wish to help build peace between our species." Dr. Chen's face broke into a wide smile. "Commander Thex, you are very welcome to stay. All of you are." The 9 Velthari who had chosen to leave were given their repaired ship and allowed to go. Thex watched them depart through the station's observation window. He did not know what would happen when they reached the fleet. He did not know if his message would be heard or ignored. But he knew that he had made the right choice, and he knew that whatever came next, he would face it without regret. The war was not over, but something new had begun. News of what happened at New Hope spread quickly through both human and Velthari space. The story of the medical ship that rescued its enemies became famous. Some humans called it foolish and dangerous. Others called it brave and noble. Among the Velthari, the reaction was more complicated. The Council demanded that Thex be brought back to face justice for his betrayal. They sent messages to New Hope threatening severe consequences if the traitor was not returned. The humans refused. They said that Thex and his crew had asked for sanctuary and that sanctuary had been granted. They would not give him up. For weeks, the situation was tense. More Velthari warships gathered near human space. The human fleet prepared for another battle. It seemed like the war was about to become much worse. But then something unexpected happened. Thex recorded a message and asked the humans to broadcast it throughout Velthari space. In the message, he told his people what had happened to him. He described the battle, the rescue, and everything he had learned about humans since then. He spoke about kindness and compassion and the possibility of peace. He asked his fellow Velthari to consider whether the war was really necessary. Most of the council dismissed his message as propaganda. They said Thex had been brainwashed by human tricks. They ordered their forces to prepare for a final attack on New Hope. But not everyone agreed with the council. Some Velthari had lost family members in the war. Some were tired of fighting an enemy they had never seen. Some remembered the old stories from before the Velthari became a warrior race, when they had been explorers and scientists and artists. These Velthari began to speak out. They asked questions the council did not want to answer. They demanded proof of human cruelty and found that the proof was often exaggerated or invented. They listened to Thex's message and wondered if maybe, just maybe, there was another way. The movement grew slowly at first, then faster. Protests broke out on Velthari worlds. Soldiers refused orders to attack civilian targets. Ship captains found reasons to delay their missions. The war machine that had seemed unstoppable began to slow down. The council tried to regain control. They arrested protesters and punished disobedient officers. But for every voice they silenced, two more spoke up. The Velthari people were tired of war, and Thex had given them hope for something better. Finally, after months of growing unrest, the council agreed to meet with human representatives. They did not want to, but they had no choice. The war could not continue without the support of their people, and that support was fading fast. The meeting took place on a neutral space station between human and Velthari territory. Thex was there, standing beside Dr. Chen and the human ambassador. He was no longer a commander of warships. He was something new, something that had not existed before, a bridge between two peoples who had been enemies. The negotiations were long and difficult. There was too much history, too much pain, too much distrust to overcome in a single meeting. But they made a start. They agreed to stop fighting. They agreed to exchange prisoners. They agreed to talk again. And when the talking was done, Thex and Dr. Chen stood at the observation window together, looking out at the stars. "Do you think it will last?" Thex asked. "This peace?" "I do not know," Dr. Chen admitted. "Peace is harder than war. It requires constant work, constant compromise, constant faith in others. Some days it will feel impossible." "But it is worth trying," Thex said. It was not a question. "Yes," Dr. Chen agreed. "It is always worth trying." They stood in silence for a while, watching the stars shine against the endless dark. Somewhere out there, millions of beings were waking up to a galaxy without war. Some were happy. Some were afraid. Some did not yet know what to feel. But they were all alive, and they all had a chance to build something new. Thex thought about the child Emma and her simple question, "Are you going to be friends with us now?" At the time, he had not known the answer. Now, looking at the future stretching out before him, he thought maybe he did. "Yes," he thought, "I believe we are." 5 years passed after the first peace agreement, and the galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The Velthari Council was gone, replaced by a new assembly that included voices from all parts of their society. Thex had become a symbol of that change, though he tried not to let it go to his head. He was still the same person who had once commanded warships and believed in the glory of battle. The difference was that now he understood how wrong he had been. The alliance between humans and Velthari had grown stronger with each passing year. Trade routes opened between their worlds. Scientists shared research and made discoveries together. Artists created works that combined both cultures in beautiful and unexpected ways. Young Velthari traveled to human universities, and young humans visited Velthari training centers to learn their ancient martial arts. But the most important change happened in the small moments that no one recorded. It happened when a Velthari merchant helped a human family find shelter during a storm on a distant trading world. It happened when a human doctor traveled to a Velthari colony to treat a disease that only affected their species. It happened when children of both races played together in the corridors of space stations, not caring about the history of conflict between their peoples. Thex saw these moments whenever he traveled, which was often. He had become a kind of ambassador, though he held no official title. He went wherever he was needed to help smooth over conflicts and build understanding. Sometimes he succeeded, sometimes he failed, but he always tried. Dr. Chen had continued her work as well. The Mercy's Hand had become the first ship of a new fleet of medical vessels that served both human and Velthari populations. She had trained hundreds of doctors and nurses, including many Velthari who wanted to learn the human approach to healing. Young Kira, who had once been dying under a fallen beam, was now one of her best students. On the anniversary of the rescue at New Hope, Thex and Dr. Chen met at the space station where the first peace talks had been held. It had become a tradition for them, a way of remembering where everything had started. 5 years, Dr. Chen said, looking out at the stars. Sometimes it feels like much longer. Sometimes it feels like yesterday, Thex agreed. I still remember waking up in the dark, thinking I was going to die, and then seeing your ship come out of the darkness. I remember being terrified, Dr. Chen admitted. We had never tried to rescue Velthari before. We did not know if you would attack us or accept our help. I almost did attack you, Thex said. Every instinct I had screamed that it was a trap. But then I saw you, this small human female with no weapons and kind eyes, and something inside me knew that you were telling the truth. What was that something? Dr. Chen asked. Thex thought about it for a moment. Hope, I think. Even in the darkest moment, some part of me hoped that there was another way. You gave me the courage to believe in that hope. They were quiet for a while, watching ships come and go from the station. Human ships and Velthari ships, traveling side by side as if they had always done so. What do you think the future holds? Dr. Chen finally asked. I do not know, Thex said. The universe is vast and we have only begun to explore it. There will be new challenges, new conflicts, new misunderstandings. Peace is never permanent. It must be built again and again, every day, every generation. That sounds exhausting, Dr. Chen said with a small smile. It is, Thex agreed. But it is also wonderful. Every day, I wake up in a galaxy where my people and your people are learning to live together. Every day, I see things that would have been impossible when I was young. Every day, I am grateful that your ship came out of the darkness and gave me a second chance. Dr. Chen reached out and placed her hand on his arm. It was a gesture of friendship, of connection, of shared purpose. Thex had learned that humans use touch to communicate emotions that words could not express. He had come to appreciate this custom, though it had felt strange at first. We gave each other a second chance, she said. That is how it works. Compassion is not something one person does for another. It is something people create together. Thex nodded slowly. The Velthari have a saying, a single flame cannot warm a room, but many flames can light a world. I think I understand it better now. That is a beautiful saying, Dr. Chen said. We have many beautiful things in our culture, Thex replied. We simply forgot them for a while. The war made us forget, but now we are remembering. They stayed at the observation window until the station's lights dimmed for the night cycle. Then they said their goodbyes and went their separate ways, knowing they would meet again next year, and the year after, and for as many years as they both lived. The galaxy continued to turn, and the stars continued to shine, and somewhere between them, two species that had once tried to destroy each other were building something new together. 10 years after the rescue at New Hope, a monument was built on the space station where the peace talks had been held. It was a simple structure, a pillar of white stone with words carved in both human and Velthari languages. Here, enemies became friends. Here, war became peace. Here, we learned that compassion is the greatest victory. The dedication ceremony brought together leaders from both species. The new Velthari Assembly sent their highest representatives. The human government sent ambassadors and admirals and scientists. But the most honored guests were the survivors of that first rescue, the crew of the Mercy's Hand and the Velthari soldiers whose lives they had saved. Thex stood before the monument and looked at the words carved into the stone. He thought about how close everything had come to turning out differently. If the humans had finished off his ship instead of offering help, if he had attacked them when they came to rescue him, if he had returned to the fleet and continued the war, any of those choices would have led to a very different future. But they had made different choices. All of them, humans and Velthari alike, had chosen to reach across the divide and take a chance on something better. Dr. Chen stood beside him, older now but still with those kind eyes that had given him hope in the darkness. Young Kira was there too, though she was not so young anymore. She had become a doctor herself, trained in both Velthari and human medicine, serving patients of all species without distinction. Even Emma was there, the little girl who had asked Thex if he was going to be friends with the humans. She was a young woman now, studying to be a diplomat. She had told Thex once that meeting him as a child had shaped her whole life. She wanted to help other enemies become friends, the way he had done. It all started with one small act of compassion, Thex said, speaking to the assembled crowd. One ship that came out of the darkness to help instead of harm. One choice to see an enemy as a person in need. That is all it took to begin changing everything. He paused and looked out at the audience, at the hundreds of humans and Velthari gathered together in peace. Some people believe that war is the natural state of the universe. They believe that different species must fight each other for survival, that cooperation is weakness, that only the strong deserve to live. I believed these things once. I was wrong. His voice grew stronger as he continued. The truth is that compassion is strength. It takes more courage to offer help than to take revenge. It takes more wisdom to build bridges than to burn them. It takes more power to create than to destroy. He gestured at the monument behind him. This stone will stand here for centuries, maybe forever. But the real monument is not made of stone. It is made of every act of kindness between our peoples. It is made of every hand reaching out in friendship. It is made of every choice to see the good in others, even when it is hard. Dr. Chen stepped forward to speak next. Her voice was soft but clear, carrying across the gathered crowd. When we launched the Mercy's Hand all those years ago, people called us foolish. They said we would get ourselves killed trying to help the enemy. They said compassion had no place in war. She smiled. They were wrong. Compassion always has a place. It is never foolish to help someone in need. It is never weakness to choose kindness over cruelty. The only foolish choice is to let fear and hatred guide our actions when we could choose something better. The ceremony continued with more speeches, more memories, more hopes for the future. But for Thex, the most important moment came later, when the crowds had gone, and he stood alone before the monument in the quiet of the artificial night. He placed his clawed hand on the cool stone and remembered everything. The battle, the darkness, the cold, the fear of death and the surprise of rescue. The first steps toward trust, the long road to peace, the countless small victories that added up to something miraculous. "Thank you," he whispered, though he was not sure who he was thanking. The humans who had saved him, his crew who had followed him into the unknown, the universe itself, which had somehow given them all a second chance. A soft sound behind him made him turn. Dr. Chen was standing there, watching him with those kind eyes. "I thought I might find you here," she said. "I was saying goodbye," Thex replied. "Or maybe hello, I am not sure which." "Perhaps both," Dr. Chen suggested. "The past and the future all meeting in this moment." Thex nodded slowly. "When I was young, I thought glory was found in battle. I thought the greatest thing a Velthari could do was defeat an enemy in combat. Now I know the truth. The greatest thing anyone can do is turn an enemy into a friend. That is the real victory. Dr. Chen moved to stand beside him, looking at the monument. Do you ever regret it, leaving your old life behind, choosing this path instead? Never, Thex said without hesitation. Not for a single moment. This path gave me more than the old one ever could. It gave me purpose, it gave me hope, it gave me friends. He turned to face her directly. It gave me you. Dr. Chen smiled, and in that smile was all the warmth and compassion that had first given Thex hope in the darkness of his dying ship. Come, she said, the others are waiting. There is a celebration tonight, and you are the guest of honor. I am not comfortable being honored, Thex admitted. I know, but sometimes we must let others express their gratitude, even if it makes us uncomfortable. That is also a kind of compassion. Thex considered this and found he could not argue with it. He took one last look at the monument, at the words carved in stone that told the story of how everything had changed. Here enemies became friends. Here war became peace. Here we learned that compassion is the greatest victory. Then he turned and walked with Dr. Chen toward the lights and the celebration, toward the future that they had built together, one act of kindness at a time. Behind them, the stars continued to shine in the endless dark, but the darkness was not empty anymore. It was full of ships traveling between worlds, carrying people of all species who had learned that they did not have to be enemies. It was full of possibility and hope and the promise of more victories to come. Not victories of war, but victories of peace. Not victories of strength, but victories of compassion. The only victories that truly mattered. And somewhere across the vast expanse of space, a new generation was growing up in a galaxy where humans and Velthari lived side by side. They did not know what it had cost to build this peace. They did not remember the war or the hatred or the fear. To them, friendship between species was simply normal, the way things had always been. That was the greatest victory of all. Not that enemies had become friends, but that their children would never have to be enemies at all. The story of compassionate victory had ended, and 1,000 new stories were just beginning.